Hey everybody, hope you had a great winter break. I froze my deck off, but it's all good because things are about to heat up. I'm back with another session of After School Yu-Gi-Oh! I know, calm down. So, January is the start of a new format, and this weekend was the release of a new set. Today, I'm going to talk about the archetype that I'm most excited about from Secrets of Eternity. I have a certain affinity for Fiend decks, so as you may have guessed, I'm here to talk about Infernoids, or as I like to call them, Winfernoids. For those of you that don't know, Infernoids is a new archetype of monsters that look like this. Robot dragons who are actually fiends with fire. They are an OTK deck that heavily rely on the graveyard. They mill and fill the graveyard with monsters to bring out their boss monster. Sound familiar? That's because a lot of people are comparing this deck to Lightsworns. They may have a lot of similarities. They stall until they can wipe the board to make that big OTK push. They're sacky and luck-based, but they have a very different playstyle. A little background on the lore. Infernoids come from the Naturia tree, just like Clifford's. As you can see, they have a lot of similarities in name and colors. They're kind of like the evil twins of Clifford's. You can find more details on the YuGiOh page. The unique thing about this archetype is that they are exclusively special summon monsters. All the level 4 and lower monsters share the same summon condition. They can only be special summoned from your hand by banishing another Infernoid monster from your hand or grave. Sounds pretty bad so far, but these guys will be able to compete against Shaddoll's and Burning Abyss because they also share this same effect. During your opponent's turn, you contribute one monster to banish a card from their graveyard. So basically, every monster is a sitting DD Crow, and these decks run 25 to 30 monsters deep. The bigger monsters, level 5 to 8, need to banish 2 Infernoids to special summon, but they can be special summoned from the grave, kinda like elemental dragons. They can also banish from the grave, but they can do it on either player's turn. Not bad so far. These guys can spam the board pretty easily, so what? Well, the effects don't end there. Let's look at the Winfernoids individually. Once per turn, Antra can return one face-up card in the field, for free. Harmadick can pop one monster on the field, for free. That'll harm your dick, alright? Petrulia can pop back row for free. But so what? These guys can't do much damage. Next turn, you can just attack over them. Sure, but after you knock them off the field, you give them more food for the bigger monsters. When Piety deals battle damage, you can send one card from your opponent's hand to the grave. When Sate Semas attacks a monster, they can banish one card at the end of the battle phase. And look closely at this text. This effect doesn't target. Atondel is a big beater, and if it destroys a monster, it can attack again just like BLS. Now do you get what I'm trying to say? These guys may be hard to bring out, but once they're on the board, they can wipe out the opponent's field very easily. But these guys are just set up for the big JD boss monster. Onukuku needs to banish 3 Infernoids to come out, but when he's special summoned, you dark hole the whole field. And when he's on the field, he's a sitting dark bribe that negates and banishes a spell or trap. And these monsters aren't just sitting robo-ducks. They also have some good spells and traps to support them. Void Expansion is their field spell. During your standby phase, you can special summon an Infernoid token, and you can also banish from the field to special summon now. It's a little slower, but it essentially gives you free food to summon or banish from your opponent's grave. It also forces your opponent to target the highest level Infernoid for attacks and effects. Void Seer is a quick play spell that works like Infestation. It protects your monster from card effects. It also has utility in the graveyard. You can banish it to shield a monster from a destruction effect. Eye of the Void lets you summon an Infernoid for free, but its effects are negated. You may not see this too often, as it is also slow. People may be running one, but it's going to be dead a lot of times, unless they ever release a searcher for this deck. Last is Void Launch, which lets you dump 2 Infernoids from your deck. This would be a cool card since it gives you a controlled dump every turn, but it self-destructs itself when you control a non-Infernoid monster, which makes this card inferior to Reasoning and Monster Gate. And that's it for the core of the deck, but for a better understanding of the deck, let's take a look at the strategy. This deck is pretty straightforward since there aren't too many combo plays. There are basically 3 engines to this deck: milling, creating board presence, and recycling. If you're unsure of what any of these cards do, be sure to look them up online. But they pretty much do exactly what you think they would do. As far as plays go, it all depends on what they have on board and in hand. There's not much I can tell you except that they will special summon an Infernoid and make you minus every turn. To stop the Infernoids, you pretty much have to keep their monsters off the board, which, to be honest, isn't too difficult. You can either shut down their graveyard or shut down their field. It just depends on which floodgates hurt you the least. Let's wrap this up by looking at the pros and cons of the deck. I'm a bad news first type of guy. This deck runs a lot of monsters. Most of them are useless in the hand without a nice fat grave. So a lot of your games will be inconsistent due to dead hands. This deck has 0 draw power. The only pluses you get are from Void Expansion, but they really just give you a plus so that you don't have to minus. Like Lightsworn, there's no room for back row, which means you will be vulnerable like a zebra in a lion cage. And lastly, you gotta OTK with this deck, or you're going to fail often. On to the pros of the deck. You gotta OTK with this deck, or you're going to fail often. Overall, this is a fun and fast deck. If you like to roll the dice and test your luck, I think you should pick up this deck. But if you're more of a controlled player who likes to test his skill and think all the time, it shouldn't be too hard to sidestep Infernoids. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to be the first to see the next episode of After School Yu-Gi-Oh!